Thank you for joining us for another update from the Soybean Extension Program. This is Rachel Van, NC State Soybean Extension Specialist. And this session will focus on how important is uniform emergence in soybeans. This video is accompanied by a more comprehensive summary of this work that is available on the Soybean Extension portal. Dr. Heiniger has emphasized the importance of uniform corn emergence on ultimate corn yield, but little data exists which investigates the same for soybeans. We have growers in North Carolina using a variety of production practices that could impact soybean emergence. For example, planter type or planting date. To investigate how important uniform emergence is in soybeans, we have conducted a simple trial over the past couple years looking at the effect of day of soybean emergence on soybean yield. This trial has been conducted from 2016 to 2018 and was properly executed in the 9 environments represented in this table. We've got county, year, agent, grower, soybean variety used, row spacing, population which was quantified by the agents, and planting date. So you can see we've got diverse soil types, planting dates, row spacings, and varieties represented across these environments. These factors, in addition to differences in weather, have impacted the results across these environments, but we will be able to discuss some trends. How exactly did we execute this in the field? Well, soybean agents would pick 4 areas throughout the field to use as their replications for this trial. Then the agents would closely monitor for soybean emergence following soybean planting. The first soybeans that emerged would be staked with one color, and then the subsequent 3 days of soybean emergence would be staked with another color. The soybean extension team would then come in and collect individual plants that emerged across the various emergence states and thresh them either by hand or using a belt thresher so we could estimate yield per individual plant, which was then extrapolated to bushels per acre based on the quantified population at each environment. So the first data I will present here is the percentage of soybeans that emerged on the first, second, third, and fourth days of emergence across these environments. So you can see at our environments, in many environments, the most soybeans emerged on that first day of emergence, although we have several environments where about equal, if not more, soybeans emerged on the second day compared to the first. But in general, we see these declines in percentage of soybeans emerged by day 3 and day 4. How does this translate into impact on yield? Well, we look at this graph. We've got days of emergence on the x-axis, soybean yield on the y-axis, and we can see that as day of soybean emergence is delayed, generally soybean yield declines. Those yield declines are more gradual from the first to the second and the third day of soybean emergence, and then drops off by that fourth day of emergence where we see a much smaller percentage of plants emerging generally. So if you look across this combined analysis of environments, that's about a 14 bushel per acre yield loss from the first day of emergence to the fourth day of emergence. You can find the yield by day of emergence across individual locations in the publication that accompanies this on the Soybean Extension portal. But looking at this data, we can see that uniform soybean emergence is probably important in affecting final soybean yield at many environments. So how can we achieve more uniform emergence? There are things that are both in the grower's control and largely out of the grower's control. Uniform planting depth is important. We still have many soybean farmers in North Carolina that are using a grain drill to plant soybeans. Other mechanisms of soybean planting likely achieve more uniform emergence. We also encourage folks to pay attention to residue levels, whether they be from a cover crop or your winter grain crop, and try to ensure your planter is penetrating the residue to achieve a uniform stand. There are other factors that influence uniform soybean emergence like soil temperature and moisture, which are less in the grower's control, although planting date can be used to avoid situations that might lead to difficulties in achieving uniform emergence, like cold soils or excessive moisture. So we've learned through this research that on average, soybean yield declined 7% as soybean emergence was delayed 1 day, 11% as soybean emergence was delayed 2 days, and 25% as soybean emergence was delayed 3 days. This is enough for us to conclude uniform emergence is important in soybeans. The next step is to investigate what production practices maximize uniform soybean emergence. If you have any questions or comments on this research, I would love to hear from you. Thanks for plugging in.